History books always made it seem that the Second World War was exclusively won by troops and generals on the front lines, and the wills and whims of national figureheads like Franklin Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin. The reality is, of course, much more complex, with generalists and specialists engaging in important battles to win wars of information, communication, infrastructure, and technology. Sometimes this meant storming the beaches of Normandy, and sometimes this meant drafting posters to school soldiers on the dangers of venereal disease. With that in mind, here are 7 of the oddest, most interesting jobs soldiers took on during World War II. Let's get started. Number 7. Airplane woodworker. Although wood was largely phased out in favor of tubular steel in aircraft construction by the time Second World War started, there was still a need for airplane woodworkers to repair and maintain existing aircraft, especially gliders and some training aircraft. Wooden gliders like the Waco CG-4A, the most widely used American military glider of World War II, played critical parts in the war. It was first used in the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. They most commonly flew airborne troops into battle, most famously for the D-Day assault on France on June 6, 1944, and Operation Market Garden in September 1944. They were also used in the China-Burma-India theater. Number 6. Field Artillery Sound Recorder. Another one to mark off in the actually way more important than it sounds, artillery sound recorders were crucial to helping to track the origin of enemy gunfire. Until the development of radar, sound ranging was one of the most effective ways to locate enemy artillery, mortars, and rockets. The process was first developed in World War I, and by World War II, sound ranging had become so sophisticated that much of the time, sound ranging teams could determine the weapons being used based on the shape of the sound waves they produced. From a forward operating post, a field artillery sound recorder would monitor an oscillograph and recorder connected to several microphones. When the sound of an enemy gun reached a microphone, the information would be recorded on sound film, and the data from several microphones could be analyzed to locate the enemy gun. As you can imagine, this information was very useful in the heat of battle. This job was made defunct after the invention of radar. However, some countries still use the tactic to this day, in tandem with other sophisticated methods. Number 5. Pigeoneer. You have probably heard that pigeons were used to deliver messages and for reconnaissance purposes during both World Wars. Pigeoneers were tasked to make sure that the pigeons would do their jobs by basically being responsible for all aspects of the birds' lives, from breeding, training, and caring for these pigeons. According to the U.S. Army Communications Electronics Museum, more than 90% of the messages carried by pigeons were successfully delivered. One American pigeon, known as G.I. Joe, even received a medal for gallantry after delivering a vital, last-minute message informing American forces that an Italian village was under British control, thus preventing a friendly fire disaster that might have resulted in roughly 1,000 deaths. The emergence of radio communication diminished the need for pigeons and pigeoneers, although it remained in the U.S. Navy until 1961 on standby for emergency communication needs. Number 4. Cooper. Wood was used to package a wide range of goods for transport all the way through World War II. Troops who worked as coopers built and repaired the wooden buckets, barrels, casks, and kegs used to pack, store, and ship supplies and equipment. If it was a wooden container, chances are they were called in to help fix it. This was the last war wooden containers were widely used. Improvements in metal and cardboard packaging technology marked the beginning of the end of Cooper as a military career. Number 3. Crystal grinder. We tend to take electricity for granted, but in the field in World War II, it could be very hard to come by, and early batteries were heavy and did not store much of a charge. Back in the day, many radios still required crystals to operate without external power sources, usually with the use of galena. and so crystal grinders were needed to grind and calibrate these crystals so they could be used to pick up specific frequencies. Interestingly, personal radios were forbidden on the front lines, but crystal radio sets lacked external power sources, so they couldn't be detected by the enemy. For this reason, troops often improvised crystal radios from a variety of materials, including pencils and razor blades, in order to listen to music and news. These contraband radio sets were dubbed foxhole radios. Number 2. Artist and animation artist. Today's military has jobs for skilled multimedia illustrators, but in World War II, being classified as an artist was far from the cushy paint pretty pictures until the troops come home position you might imagine. The military's animation artists were quite busy during World War II. Their duties included making paintings, illustrations, layouts, sketches, or designs, occasionally lives and even the outcomes of major battles. The Army even stationed soldiers at Walt Disney Studios for the duration of the war to make patriotic films for the public and instructional or training films for service members. Artists ended up being crucial to one of the most important deceptions of World War II. The now infamous and wildly successful Operation Fortitude aimed to convince the Germans that the Allied forces were heading towards France for the D-Day invasion and that they would land in Pas-de-Calais in July rather than Normandy in June. They were tasked to create scale models of the military equipment, terrain, fake buildings, vehicles like aircraft, landing craft, and even play recorded sounds of armored and infantry units. All of these were positioned near Dover in England in a fake camp built for the 1st U.S. Army Group. It was a success because Hitler and his troops were on standby for 2 weeks after the Normandy landings because they were expecting that another invasion was coming from the Dover Strait. All thanks to the military model makers' skillful hands and minds. Number 1. Blacksmith. Can you imagine being shipped to war as a blacksmith? This is exactly what many soldiers did when enlisting during World War II. Blacksmiths still made many of the items needed to repair equipment and machinery. Their skills were needed in order to create and fix horseshoes for thousands of horses, as well as make tools and parts for soldiers and machinery alike. They would make metal tools and parts by hand in coal or coke forges. Imagine not trashing and ordering a new part, but having a skilled blacksmith on hand to reforge an item. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Also, visit our second channel with military power comparisons. See you next time.